Once upon a time, there was a novelist named Raymond. He was a successful author of horror novellas, but he had grown tired of the constant attention and fame that came with his writing. He longed to get off the grid and live a peaceful, anonymous life. One day, Raymond made the decision to leave it all behind. He sold his house, gave away all of his possessions, and disappeared into the wilderness. For a time, he was content living in isolation, but soon he began to feel a sense of unease. He realized that, much like one of his own horror novellas, the grid would not let him leave. No matter how far he ran, he could not escape the reach of technology. The government, banks, and credit card companies were able to track him down. Even his phone could be tracked by the network providers. Raymond began to feel trapped, like he was living in a nightmare. He had thought that getting off the grid would bring him freedom, but instead, it had only brought him more fear and paranoia. But Raymond was not one to give up easily. He began to study the workings of the grid and soon discovered that he could create his own network, one that was completely off the radar. He spent years building his own system, and soon it was ready. He slowly began to migrate his friends and family, and eventually, many other like-minded individuals to his new grid. It was a decentralized and private network that was completely disconnected from the old grid. As the new grid grew in popularity, the old one began to wane. People were drawn to the freedom and security offered by Raymond's network. Eventually, the old grid was consumed by Raymond's new one, and the world had a new standard for privacy and security. But things took a sinister turn when the police, who were frustrated with the limitations of the old grid, also moved to Raymond's network. However, unbeknownst to Raymond and the rest of the community, the police officers were actually a group of serial killers who had been using their positions of power to cover up their crimes. With the police now on the new grid, they were able to continue their killing spree undetected. Raymond and his community were shocked and horrified to discover that they had unknowingly welcomed in these dangerous criminals. Raymond realized that, no matter how much he tried to escape the old grid, evil always found a way to infiltrate his new one. He spent the rest of his days working to strengthen the security of his network and ensure that the same mistake would never happen again. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider liking the video and subscribe to be notified of freshly baked, frightfully generic stories.